Lokoz Boxing. By now, most of you already know that Ryan Garcia will no longer have Eddy Reynoso as a trainer. In other words, he's leaving Team Canelo. He had mentioned how he just didn't feel like Eddy Reynoso had enough time for him. You know, we did make a video about that, talked about that a little. However, now Oscar de la Hoya has put in his opinion or his 2 cents into the whole matter. And even before Oscar de la Hoya had said this, there had been rumors indicating that it was maybe Oscar de la Hoya that put enough pressure on Ryan Garcia to, pull out from that training camp, because as you all may know, Oscar de la Hoya and Canelo Alvarez didn't leave off on the best terms. So now when Oscar de la Hoya is asked about Ryan Garcia leaving Eddy Reynoso's team, Oscar de la Hoya replied by saying that it was better for Ryan Garcia either way. He even made a comment as to say that if Eddy Reynoso is training Ryan Garcia and Canelo wants to go on vacation, then Eddy Reynoso would probably just grab his stuff and take off on vacation, leaving the fighter hanging that he's supposed to be training. He mentioned that, Eddy Reynoso really doesn't have time for any other fighter other than Canelo Alvarez. So we can definitely see from Oscar de la Hoya's comments that there probably was some type of pressure from Oscar de la Hoya to pull out Ryan Garcia from Eddy Reynoso's training camp or Team Canelo. By the way he gave that response, saying that Eddy Reynoso would take off on vacation in the middle of a training camp if Canelo were to ask or invite Eddy Reynoso to go on vacation, where Eddy Reynoso would just leave his responsibilities as a trainer, where he would just leave whatever fighter he's training hanging for Canelo and him to go on a vacation. That just doesn't seem realistic. You have the trainer of the year who has a training camp surrounded by boxing champions, very disciplined fighters, which most have said really good things about Eddy Reynoso and have continued to work with Eddy Reynoso. This just really seems like a jab from Oscar de la Hoya to Eddy Reynoso and Canelo Alvarez. The way he said it's not realistic. Now, if Ryan Garcia does truly feel that Eddy Reynoso did not give him enough time in the training camp compared to other fighters, that's completely understandable. I ain't hating on that. However, it's more on the fact that De La Hoya puts this really unrealistic scenario. He just doesn't have that reputation, Eddy Reynoso, of just leaving his fighters hanging in the middle of a training camp just to go on vacation. Obviously, like any boxing trainer, if he's going to go on vacation, they're going to have a set time for that, and they're going to make sure they tell whoever it is they're training with ahead of time so that they don't have to leave in the middle of a training camp. Another thing is that Ryan Garcia talking about how, it's just not enough time for him in that boxing gym. I mean, everybody else has fights going on, important fights. Everybody else is very disciplined. What type of attention did Ryan Garcia really need? He hasn't fought in such a long time. He's just pretending like he's going to fight, and then he pulls out of fights. He postpones fights. He says he has an injury. He says he has mental problems. He goes on. He seems to spend his time on social media, basically, just calling out fighter after fighter, and then not being able to back up whatever he says. So, I mean, I just find it hard to believe that Ryan Garcia is intensively training for all this time that he hasn't fought, to where he needs all that attention. But if that's how he feels, that's how he feels. he's paying Eddy Reynoso, so you know, if he's not satisfied with that service, or if he feels like the pressure's too much from De La Hoya to pull out of that training camp, you know, it is what it is. That's on him. You got to respect that. But it does seem unrealistic, the things that are being said. I really don't think it's Ryan Garcia's training camp that's the problem. I think Ryan Garcia has lost love for the boxing sport. I think he's just not as disciplined as he should be. I think that he's living good. He made his money, and doesn't seem like he's really into fighting. He has a fight coming up, I believe, in April, if it doesn't get postponed or canceled again, or if he doesn't get some, out of nowhere injury again. But I think his biggest problem is the discipline he needs. He needs to focus and discipline. And if he can't focus, if he can't be disciplined, if he can't find motivation when he's working in Eddy Reynoso's training camp, surrounded by some of the most disciplined boxing champions at the time, then I don't know where he's going to get motivation or how he's going to motivate himself. But we'll see what happens in his next fight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Lokoz Boxing.